Welcome to Talent Show, the podcast where we put personality front and center in the hiring process. I'm your host, Lauren Glass Mullins, founder of Personality Pool, and around here, we believe people are more than bullet points on a resume. So whether you are hiring for a team or trying to join one, we've got tips, stories, and a whole lot of personality to help you stand out. Let's dive in. You guys are in for a treat today. We have an absolute queen that we are interviewing. Kathryn O'Day is a partner at Atlanta Ventures where she empowers entrepreneurs to learn, build, and grow. She has been scaling Atlanta tech companies for over a decade as employee number 9 at Pardot, which was acquired by Salesforce, and COO at Rigor, acquired by Splunk. Kathryn lives in Atlanta with her husband and 2 sons. She is a 7-time Ironman triathlon finisher, including 2 world championships. Holy cow. Kathryn is passionate about company culture, operations, and customer success. Yes, I froze there. I'm not redoing it. Love you, Kathryn. She likes to Kathryn, which is a verb coined by the Rigor CEO, ideas, turning them into actionable plans. Kathryn is passionate about helping entrepreneurs with deep knowledge in scaling operations, people, culture, and customer success. She's been a customer success team of 1, led a team of 50, built departments from scratch, and hired and trained hundreds of customer success rock stars. She has been scaling Atlanta tech companies for over a decade, and she is on the Talent Show podcast today. I am so excited for you guys to listen in on the conversation with Kathryn O'Day. Kathryn O'Day, my literal startup icon in the flesh. I'm so excited that we're getting to have this conversation today. Thank you for coming on.
Yay! I am so excited to be here.
Well, this is going to be a lot of fun because I could talk to you for hours anyway. So this gives us an excuse to do it. And I'm always happy for that.
Me too. And sorry for the audience when this podcast is going to be 4 hours of you and me just hanging out. But I think it's going to be great content.
They will love it. I have no doubt. Okay, so how we like to kick this off is I want you to tell us, because people think that human resources or hiring in general is boring, but what I'm learning through this is that there's actually some really interesting, and by interesting I mean weird, things that can happen throughout that process. So I wanted to hear from your experience. Do you have a crazy, weird, funny hiring story that stands out to you?
I feel like the very best, craziest ones I've probably blocked out of my head. You know, it was like too much. But I do remember interviewing somebody and I asked what he liked to do in his free time, because we always wanted to know that people had a life outside of work and wanted to know that they had hobbies and interests. And he said that he was a foodie. And I said, great. What is your favorite restaurant? And he said, Chili's. And I thought that was an interesting choice. It's not a typical foodie choice, but that always stood out to me. And I wasn't sure if just, you know, I didn't dig in on like what he loved at Chili's or why he thought Chili's was like prime cuisine. But I do remember thinking that was quite an answer.
That's seriously so funny. And as somebody who lives in a more rural part of the country and the state, I love it. Listen, you will find me at Texas Roadhouse on the occasion. I'm gonna go get those rolls. Chili's is not on my list, even as
a foodie, it's not on your list.
It's
Listen,
not on my list.
I don't know. I will say, so this is not a funny, ridiculous one, but this is one that has always stuck with me. We interviewed somebody who had a very, quite a low GPA for software tech job. And one of the things, he was a recent college grad, and GPA is correlated with job performance when you are close to college. The further you get out of college, the less it matters, but it's correlated with conscientiousness and being responsible and showing up on time and trying hard. And his GPA was in the low 2s, and great, very nice human. And I remember my boss, we did the first interview, we passed him to my boss, and he said that person should never have gotten through the interview process. And I always remember that as make sure you are looking for great talent. It was very much a reminder that you want to get people who are awesome, who are the right fit. high quality candidates.
I think that's super interesting because I like to always hear what that funnel looks like. Like if you're the first round and then if somebody does creep through, like what's the story that you have to tell to justify that you put them up to the big boss. And so for you to have, that's very interesting. That is very interesting. I love it. Okay. So obviously we're going to talk about hiring and specifically for startups because you've done a lot in startups and I feel from what I know about you, you've been on every side of it. So you just have a lot to give all of us, a lot of good information. And so I am a founder that originally, with my first business, did not have any hiring experience. And which is hilarious because now I have a hiring company. And that's the power of you can do anything you put your mind
Yes,
to.
of course.
But if you are a founder that doesn't have hiring experience, what would be like the first thing that you think these founders should learn about that process?
The first thing I would say is trust your instincts. And we will talk all about how it's important to have a good process. You want to have a list of questions that you know you're going to ask that align to what you're looking for. But the mistakes that I have made is when I thought someone wasn't right. I couldn't say exactly why, but I decided to ignore my own self and hire them anyway. And especially as a founder early on, your team is your people. They are the ones that are going to help you make the company successful. And if you don't click with them, that's a problem in your success. So make sure that you trust yourself as a founder and in hiring.
I think that just in general, like your instinct is something that is a tool that we don't use a lot in every aspect, but especially when you're interacting with another person. That gut feeling, I would agree with that. And I think I still, even with like investors and advisors, that is something that I still have to fight myself not to ignore. Because you just wanted to say like, oh, there's something about me that just doesn't like that person. That's not fair or whatever. But yes, trusting that gut instinct, especially if you are hiring a small team. My one full-time employee is on the backside of this computer right now. We are that close. So you really do spend so much time together. They are the like reason that you're going to succeed. So I love that. I think that's really great advice.
It's also why something like personality pool is so important because you get so much more feedback from a video, from seeing somebody face to face. Are they making eye contact? Are they smiling? Are they like, how do they interact with somebody else as a person? How do they interact on a screen? I think you get a lot more feedback, and resumes are good and valuable and important, and they show important things, but the seeing somebody face to face and trusting your instinct, I think, is key.
Ask you based off that. And resumes and traditional hiring practices are a huge hot topic right now. Some hiring teams are like dead set on, no, we're going to live and die by this process. We want to screen through the resume first. And they either are like, okay, maybe we'll add a video component somewhere, maybe we won't. But from your perspective, what do you think? How do you weigh those? Like, what is it about the resume that actually matters and what doesn't? And then do you feel that they go hand in hand? Do you think the resume could be replaced by video? Or just like in your perfect hiring world, what are you looking for out of each thing?
That's a great question because I think it depends on the role that you're hiring for. So in the startup tech world, almost always there's a writing component. You're sending emails, you're writing articles or blogs, you're communicating with customers. So what I look for on the resume is actually how do they communicate on the resume? Do they have a lot of typos? Is it well organized? I do look at their experience. Do they have real work experience? I think it's important to have work experience before jumping into the crazy hectic startup life.
Definitely.
But you don't have to have business work experience. You could have worked customer service. You could have worked at an ice cream shop, but just that you've actually had a job and showed up on time and know what that is like. So I think from that perspective, a resume is important. But what I used to do is look at resumes. I'd take the top 5 to 6 resumes. Then I would schedule a 15-minute video interview. This was before we had cool tools where people could just submit a video, but I would know in the first 1 to 2 minutes if I wanted to move somebody on to the next stage. And it would be based on their interaction with me. Were they professionally dressed? How were they communicating? Did they look positive? Did they look tired and grumpy? And then from there, we would do a longer interview or meet them in person, whatever the next step was. So I think that I will say I would never hire somebody just off a resume. You always need that in person. And if you have some intermediate step, like a video or, whether it's a live video or a video recording. I know in the sales process, on the sales hiring, we used people would submit a 1-minute pitch about themselves.
Okay.
And that would be 10 times more helpful than just a resume, especially in sales.
Talking about sales, so I got my first sales job, my resume. Well, I was going through the hiring process and I was submitting all of these resumes. I was about to graduate from college, and I'm one of these people that cannot, there's certain things I could probably stretch the truth on. I definitely stretched the truth on a resume or two, but you would have to check, do you have a bachelor's degree? Do you? And technically I didn't have it yet, but there was no way for me to explain hey, I'm about to graduate. I'm trying to go ahead and figure out what I'm going to do. And I have some experience on my resume, but not tons. Well, at that point, I wouldn't even make it to a round 2 because whatever was reading those resumes was just automatically kicking me out. And so a lot of hiring processes still today, I mean, that was 10, 12 years ago. Crazy to think for me, but there are still a lot of old school practices like that. And I think hearing you say that it really is the comprehensive package of a person, I like that more people are starting to think that way because for so long everything was weighted on that resume.
Yeah.
But now it's soft skills. People are seeing the importance of having both. And so what I took away from what you just said is that maybe put a lot of work into your resume. You want to present yourself well on that. But you don't have to put so much pressure on, my gosh, I don't have just capitalize on the experiences you do have, articulate it well. And then that's really what's the weight of the resume versus just going through and being ding, ding, no degree, no this, no that, or whatever it may be. I mean, some jobs you need a degree, but generally speaking, I think that's changing a lot.
Yeah, it totally is. It's one of the things I would, at a startup especially, but I think this is true of any job except for maybe a doctor's office where you want people to have their degrees and knowledge run up.
We need to have a medical degree, please. I need to see that board certification.
I would pick somebody with a great attitude who is willing to jump in and do anything over somebody with a lot of experience almost any day of the week, especially at a startup, because so many times nobody has experience at that startup. The nature of the startup is that you're doing a new thing. You're bringing a new technology to the world. So there's no experts in that technology, but you just have to be good at figuring it out. You want somebody who can go through the ups and downs with you, and you want somebody who your customers like.
That's huge. And that's where the soft skills for me, that's the only reason I got a job, Kathryn, is because I could talk to people. And I get it. But it really did kind of catapult my entire career. And I think about that all the time. And ultimately, that's why I have this company that's all about letting people display their soft skills. But I love hearing you say that. And I think that people should really take that and run with it because everybody's resume is not created equal, but that's not necessarily going to rule you out if you're showing up and putting your best foot forward in whatever it is that process looks like for you, which is going to kind of filter into our next question. We've talked about this a little bit, but when you're thinking about when you're making these hires, it's easy to want to hire a bunch of people that are just like you because you enjoy them and you want to be around them. I don't know if you do the Enneagram or anything like that. I'm an Enneagram 7, and I love to surround myself with those people. If I only had 7s around me, we would get nothing done. We would just have constant stand-up routines, karaoke parties, and God only knows what. So when you're hiring for people, how do you make sure that when you're hiring for culture, you're not just hiring for what you consider to be great culture?
Yes. So I think the first step is to define your core values. For every founder, I would recommend having 2 to 4 core values. Those are things that you want your culture, your company culture, to embody. It's not rocket science. Here's some core values I've been a part of. Positive, supportive, self-starting. Be authentic. Customer first. Be kind and do good work. These are glass half full, being optimistic. There's a theme here, right? But different people value different things. Some people want the authenticity. Some people are like, no, you need to be positive. If you are authentically grumpy, we don't want that here. And that's totally fine. But I think it's important to set your core values. And it's different because the culture of the company is always going to be a reflection of the founder. There's no way to do it other than that. It's the only authentic, real way to do it. And I think core values are often And like a human, they're both who you are and also who you aspire to be. So you don't have to be perfect in all of these ways. And I mean you as in like your company. Your company doesn't have to embody all of these core values perfectly every day, but that you have this framework of what you're trying to, how you're trying to show up in the world. Then what you do is you take those core values and you find questions that help reveal if somebody aligns with that core value. So you ask questions that try to dig in on that. So an example would be, tell me about the most challenging customer interaction you had and how did you handle that? Well, if your core value is being positive and putting the customer first, you'll see if they said, well, we made it right with the customer and I kept my cool, or if you say, they were a real jerk, so we kicked him out, whatever. And so then you embody, so you have your core values and then you interview for those core values. And I think it's also important that you have a job description in mind. So then you hire people that, like, if you need somebody to keep you on track, I need an ops person. You figure out what an ops job description looks like, and then you make sure you have questions in your interview process that help uncover, can they do that ops job? And that's how you get people that you like, that embody the core values that you care about, but are different than you, and you build it. They call it a team of rivals. Do you remember that term? It was very trendy, but you build a diverse team. I've heard it also called the Breakfast Club, where where you have like a jock and a nerd and
a personality hire.
Yeah, you have like all your different people so that you have a fun mix of people.
Something that I've thought a lot about, because I have looked on so many career pages for companies, and on the career pages, it's always fun, energetic environment and innovative and all of these great, or whatever. Those are kind of like buzzy. People are a little more creative than that, than I'm giving them credit for, but you get the point. And so you're like, oh, this is awesome. And then you go to actually apply for the job or read the job description, and the job description doesn't match the values. And then you go through the process and it's kind of outdated, and you're like, gosh, like how innovative can they be? And so I think you saying like, take those core values, build your questions off of them. People are looking, I think the job market now, especially millennial and now Gen Z, and then honestly, like even Gen Alpha, those kids are like 15 and 16 now. There's so many options, and I think they are looking for the company that takes what they're about seriously, even throughout that hiring process. And so I don't know. I mean, do you see that ever, that like people's core values just don't match the hiring process?
I see it all the time, and it's not good. But what I love about it is if you build it into the hiring process. So any interview process is a two-way street, because that candidate is vetting you just as much as you're vetting that candidate. And that candidate should be asking questions like, I saw this on your website. Can you tell me more about this? It says your core value is customer first. How do you guys embody that? Your coffee shop or at your tech company. And the other thing I like about core values is it also attracts the right people to you, because to your point, you go to the career page and you say, folks seems fun. And you're fun, so you want to be around other fun people. And then if they can live up to what their values are and they can showcase them in the hiring process, then that's a really good fit. And if their values are fun and you're like, actually, I hate fun, then that's a really good sign too that that's not the right job for you.
It's not the job for you.
And I do think people forget that their hiring process is their first experience with that person as an employee, and they are selling. Just as much as they're vetting, they are also selling in the hiring process. If there is somebody that I meet that I think they're great, I almost immediately flip into, I'm still vetting them and making sure, but I almost immediately flip into, let me tell you how awesome this company is. But I'm like making sure that they want to, I'm like telling fun stories, talking about the vision of the company. So I do think there's a miss. People spend time on your job descriptions, because a fun job description makes you want to work there. And then also spend time on the interview process to make sure your interview process matches how you do business. Whatever you pride yourself on as a business, you want your interview process to also be good. And I remember, so at Pardot, we grew really fast. We went from 10 people to 100 people in less than 2 years. To hire that many people, you're doing 10 times as many interviews. And we were learning along the way. And for the most part, we did a great job, but we had some misses where there would be things where somebody would not get a call back, or they would be waiting for an hour for somebody to meet with them, or we were not prepared in the interview and we didn't even know who the person was, like these things. And so they had a really negative experience with us. And that sucks because now they tell their friends it sucks for that single person, but also that's bad for your whole brand. So
Right.
I do think the hiring process is very important to be thoughtful and get right because it is a reflection of who you are as a company.
It's like the first impression. I mean, as a candidate, you're all nervous and you're having to go do this stuff. But I think where hiring, and again, I mean, I've only applied to so many jobs, but I talked to a lot of people. There's not many unique hiring processes out there, I will say. Most people are doing the exact same things. They are now chat GPTing the perfect job description that just looks like a robot literally wrote it, and I love chat GPT, don't get me wrong, but there's just no personality in the hiring process. And then you get with the overworked HR person, because a lot of times they are small teams and they're tired. And it's just like these generalized questions, and that's just not good. That's not how you want a candidate to feel when they go through the process. And the companies that get it right, I find these articles of people or on Reddit singing the praises. Oh, I went through this process. And I'm telling you, it's the smallest things, like sending a thank you note to every person that applied, or even just a personalized thank you
That's so
email.
nice.
Like these little touches in your process to make it, people will go out and talk about how great your company was, even if they didn't get the job.
Yeah, we had that. So I should say we had some growing pains at Pardot, but for the most part, we had an amazing culture. We had a great hiring process, and we would have people who didn't get the job who would refer people to us. And I'm like, that is the pinnacle that's the highest of the high. That is what you are
Truly.
going for. We
Off
would
the
look
record.
at the hiring managers would look at the resumes, and we would say, here are the people we like. The recruiter would then do a phone interview. If they pass the phone interview or video interview, then we would meet with them in person. We do one meeting. Then we would have them do a work assessment. So this would be an example of the type of work that they would do.
Okay.
High level, not rocket science, but we just wanted to see, can you write an email to a customer? Can you do some online research? What does your work product look like? Can you hand it in on time? And then we would do a final interview. And then in that final interview, we would have somebody meet that person from a different team, and we called them a cross-functional interview. And the idea was
Nice.
that a salesperson needed to want to work with an engineer, and an engineer had to want to work with a salesperson. And so I think we called it a culture check, but we changed the name on that because it wasn't about if we liked you, it was that we think you embody the core values of the company. And we would have the questions. And one of the things I also learned in that time, and I think you have a question about this, which is like a mistake you've made. And this is a mistake I made for
Let's go.
10
Let's
years.
jump right into it.
10 years, which I thought there was value in having creative questions, right? Oh, we're going to ask a different question every time. Look at how good we are at interviewing. We can just ad hoc these different questions. We have this arsenal of questions. And actually, I know this sounds so obvious as soon as I say it. You should ask the same question every time, because then you compare apples to apples across candidates and you don't enter the bias of, oh, we like this person, so we're asking them better questions, or we asked a different question here and they really nailed that one, but this person didn't nail this question, but it was a slightly different question. So that was a learning I had. And in terms of advice for founders, have a template and ask everybody the same question. It's so easy.
Well, I don't think that's obvious though, because it's easy to just try to be super creative. When I think about some of the questions I have been asked in interviews, I'm like, does that even have to do with anything, But it's just like trying to be like, it's trying to have that culture and fun experience, but really making it harder for yourself on the back end. And that's one of the things when we created Personality Pool, I had this list of all the things people were going to love about it. Those were not any of the things that appeared on the list of what people loved about it, which now it's just funny to me because when we create something new or we go out with something, I'm like, here's what I love. I can promise you not one single person is even going to notice that that's a thing. Happens every time. But the centralized, or the ability to centralize your hiring across many locations, because they were having, a lot of the people that we work with were having that exact problem. That's why I know it's not a crazy, obvious thing. as you would think, well, now it is because you learned it, but they would have certain managers that would ask this set of questions, and then these
Hmm.
managers would ask this, and it was just not like there was no correlation or nothing to compare, like
Right.
you said, apples to apples to. And so I think that's a huge learning and something that, again, has been one of the selling points for us is that it is so important to centralize that and give everybody a fair
Yes,
shot.
yes. And once you find a good question, everybody should use that question. I mean, it can be hard to come up with the right question to vet certain qualities that you're looking for. And once you find that question, just keep using that good question.
Yeah, why don't reinvent the wheel? You've got enough wheels
No,
to
there's
reinvent.
enough wheels. We've got
Just
enough wheels spinning. No new
just
wheels.
go with the question.
No new wheels.
Okay, here is our next question, which I'm gonna cut that because I'm trying to do better without being like question 3. It's
That's
hard
fine.
though, and I'm like
I
look at
know.
my tablet and I'm trying my tablet. Who says tablet? My iPad. I'm a grandma right now. All right,
Oh, I'm having the
this
best time.
we're just learning as you go. What's funny is most people will probably just watch the clips that I put on social. We'll have the whole episode. Maybe somebody will listen to it.
Listen,
But
somebody listens to the whole thing.
hey,
Lucky
listen,
them.
if
Lucky them.
they will, because I'll eventually clip it all up until we've used the whole thing and I'll force it down everybody's throat.
Perfect. That's what social media is all about.
I will force myself into your life. Startups are messy and crazy, and they
Yeah.
really are not for everybody. What would you say is one trait that every person that's hiring in a startup should look for in a candidate?
I think attitude matters so much. Positive attitude to be able to weather the ups and downs, the changes. I think that's the number one. Also, because you want to show up to work every day and enjoy who you're working with. So,
Definitely.
number one is positive attitude. I'll throw in a second one, which I also think is especially important for startups, which is the ability to function in a higher chaos, lower structure environment. If you need somebody to tell you what to do, you are not a good fit for a startup. If you need a lot of training, if you need a handbook, those things don't exist in startups. So you are in the wrong job. And so that is actually something that I used to listen for in a job interview. If someone says, I can follow the instruction, give me the instructions, or what kind of training is there? Do you guys have a handbook? How long is the onboarding process? And those are fine to ask about, but if somebody seems too worried about needing the instructions versus I'm just going to jump in and figure it out, that it's not about them not being good or smart. They will not enjoy being at a startup.
And when I think about if we brought somebody on and they right now ask for a handbook, I would be like, we're going to have that for you when you start. And then we would immediately,
Handbook. You keep
because
a handbook.
because you're going to make
Shop.
it. As a matter of fact, that's first on your task list. And that is quintessential startup
Yes.
hiring
Yes.
right there. I love that. I think the good attitude, again, it all comes back to the importance of giving people the space to show their soft skills. I mean, we can make it this
Yeah.
big, hard thing. And again, there's certain requirements needed for certain things, but
Yeah.
that soft skills, there was one social post that we did that said something about adding a vibes section to a resume. And so that's
Yes.
really where the video comes in. But yeah, it is about the good
Yeah.
attitude if they can
Yeah.
do it. And also if they don't need a handbook.
Yeah. Well, you said something earlier. You said you got your first job because you could talk. And you'd be shocked at how many people can't talk. Talking is a great skill, and you can't show people skills on a resume. You can kind of back into it of did they do customer service? What jobs did they have? But the ability to talk and be personable, shockingly underrepresented in a lot of places. So never underestimate. It's the other thing I'll say too about that I see a lot is things that come naturally to people, they tend to not value because it's easy for them. So you forget how hard that is for other people. And so I think it's awesome. I think you're a great talker and I love that about you.
Thank you. Well, I'm laughing, but when I was going through the hiring process, I did beat myself up a lot because I mean, I went to school, I did the things, but I wouldn't say I had this epically amazing resume. I didn't do any big internships. I just didn't. And so I always felt like the underdog in every hiring process because I didn't really appreciate what I did have, which was the ability to exist with people and communicate and all of
Yeah.
that good stuff, which now I have learned to use it to my full advantage. But that's why I'm so passionate about what we do with Personality Pool is that I think there's a lot of people like me that we're okay students, but the things that don't reflect on a resume, like giving the Laurens a chance to showcase that is really exciting to me. And I think a lot of people are adopting it more. There's still a lot of apprehension about video resumes and video screens, which is interesting that HR seems to be like 5 years behind every other process, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. But yeah, it really excites me. And thank you. My husband says that I do. He's like, I've never seen anybody that can just get up and public speak, and not only get up and public speak, but if you feel a bit nervous, you don't freeze up, you just overshare. You just keep going. And I do. So if I'm put on the spot, I'm like, no, I will just say more, and I will say too much. Things people don't need to know. And I'm like,
I
well,
love it.
thanks for
I love
coming to
it.
my TED Talk.
I love it.
Get this one. You've had a really impressive career, which your bio, I was like, this girl has done it all down to Ironman. She is amazing. What is one hiring belief that you had early in your career that you've completely changed your mind about? Whether it's from you as a candidate, like a belief that you had about the process, or whichever side or both sides. What was that for you?
Early in my career, I believed that if you weren't good at one job, there was no way you could be good at another job. And there are people that we almost put on performance plans, and then we ended up moving them into a different role, and they crushed it. And I can think of one person in particular. He was in a customer support role, great with customers, not good on the follow-up. Drop a ball, customers would get upset. It was problematic. But the team loved him, and he became a team manager, and he in the top 1% of customer support team managers. Absolutely phenomenal. And so that was the biggest lesson I learned, that truly a job could be the wrong fit. And I say this, it sounds insane that I didn't know that, because I started my career in sales, and I was in sales for 4 months. I was doing it. I would sit in my car every morning reading mantras to get myself pumped up to try to go do
Sell
cold
stuff.
calls and sell. Yeah. And I had a career development meeting, and I was like, listen, I don't really care about making money. I just want to do the right thing and make people happy. And what I'd really love to do, if this ever was possible, is to work with customers and be a customer advocate. And they were like, well, if you don't care about money, you should not be in sales. And actually we have this customer advocate job, and you're going to move into that this week. And I was so thrilled, and it was like I came out of my shell, and it was a perfect fit, and I loved it. And that was really what launched my career. I probably would have been a mediocre salesperson for a while, but never really loving it. And so that was it's funny that I should have known that people can be in the wrong role and then get in the right role, and it's transformational, but somehow it took me a really long time to learn that.
And that's because there probably wasn't big pushes for personality at the beginning of the process. Luckily, you figured it out, and they figured it out and pushed you into a new role. But that's why it's so important with whatever tools, whether it's personality pool or not, to try to capture a bit about your candidate's personality so that you can help inform where they might need to go. Or when you decline to hire them, you can give them like, hey, this is actually, you're going to be miserable. I think that's so important, just to be like very human it's just two humans talking and seeing if a job is the right fit. So I think that's so interesting that your personality is what ended up leading you into the right thing.
I like to help people. I don't care about money.
And you literally crush it. And I obviously don't care about money because I started a tech company. I do care. It's out there. It's out there. One day when I'm having my big exit, that's when I'll start to love money. But right now, all I see it is flowing out.
Dude, it's all about putting the right energy in the world, and it comes back to you. I truly believe that.
I do too. I believe that too. And you have to believe that as a founder. You literally have to believe that. If you could add one rule to every startup hiring process, what would it be?
I have like 100 rules that I'd like to add. I would say number one rule would just be map out your hiring process before you get started so that you know what you're going to actually do. And then, I just keep adding second rules. I'm like, yeah, that's one thing.
Rule. There's no rules
here. My second rule would be keep the candidate experience in mind. It's not just about you as a company trying to find somebody. It's also about somebody having a good experience as they're meeting you and interviewing with you. And it doesn't mean that you have them move to a stage of the interview if they're not a fit. It actually means being as quick as possible to let them know if it's not going to work out too.
Yeah, the I got customers on the brain all the time. The
Dude, I
candidate
understand.
communication piece is huge. There's nothing worse than being completely ghosted or having false
Yes.
hope. And
Yes.
that's probably my least favorite thing ever, not only in jobs, but just anything. Like a quick,
Right.
people respect a fast no so much more than you
Yes.
think.
Yes. I feel that way about investing too. When a founder comes to us and wants to raise money, every now and then I'm slow on the reply or we're talking about it internally, but we really try to make a fast decision and let them know, including if it's a yes, we want to move forward quickly. And what founders don't always understand is that if you haven't heard from a company, it's a no. It may not be a no yet, but it will be a no because if it's a yes, you'll know.
That's really good advice. Hard advice to learn. I've definitely been strung along a bit in my time. So, but yeah, I think that's a good thing to accept.
I got it from the book. He's just not that into you. Do you remember this?
I haven't read the book, but I love the movie.
Okay. 2000s, early 2000s. Bible. It's like, hey, if he likes you, you'll know. Don't
And
make
if-
excuses.
Just move on.
Yeah.
Same thing with that job you're trying to get. If you haven't heard from
Same
them,
thing with the
they're
job.
not that into you.
Yeah. Not that into you.
We've kind of covered this, but of course, this is the Personality Pool podcast. So I'm going to ask many a personality based questions. What is your stance on using personality based hiring tools and putting a larger emphasis on personality in the hiring process? It's important. And you can be honest, it's kind of important or it's not. You know what I mean? Like in
Yeah.
your mind, where does personality fall in the hierarchy of importance?
Sure. So I would. Okay, so first of all, I have been seeing part of interview processes where they do literal personality assessments to understand what somebody's strengths are. And some of those are good. Some of them are not science-based. Myers-Briggs is actually, if you dig into Myers-Briggs, it's real shady.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of research around it. And so it hurts my heart when somebody is talking about Myers-Briggs as a way to vet somebody or understand team dynamics. I'm like, there's so many better things out there. But I think of really personality as attitude, attitude and people skills. And it is wildly important. We talk about, I like the attitude and aptitude, and they both matter a lot. But when in doubt, I would pick attitude over aptitude, because if you have the right attitude, you can learn new things. If you're very smart, but you don't have the right attitude, it actually can be a hindrance because you think you know it all. You think you're smarter than people. And then I just go back to every job is a people job. Even when you're an engineer and you're in front of your computer all day, you still have to commit code with other engineers. You have to collaborate on what the product is going to be. Everybody works with everybody, and the people piece I think is very important. So I would never, it's not fair to hire somebody who's totally unqualified, but they have a good personality. Like, that's not fair to them. But
Throw me into a development role and I'm like,
yeah, like I would not be a good architect, even though I have a great personality. Don't do that. But I mean, every company I've been a part of, your company culture is the only competitive advantage that you have complete control over. You cannot control what happens to the market. You cannot control what happens to the economy. You can't control how your customers' businesses do, but you have total control over how you hire, who you hire, and what is the environment that you create for them. So that is the time you spend on hiring is gonna pay off X if you can do it well. And it's not just, there's so many number metrics about this that you don't want to ever have to redo a hire. If you get your hiring right, you save a ton of money long term because you don't have to go out and recruit again. You don't have to train somebody again. Like, turnover is so expensive, but also it's expensive to your company culture because it hurts morale. People don't like working with somebody who has a bad attitude. The A players, nothing annoys an A player like a B player, or really a C player. Like, get those C players out of there. Right? And the old adage is A players hire other A players, but B players hire C players. Something like that, where basically you hire the best and it attracts other great people. So that's why I think getting the hiring right is so important, especially early on.
And I agree. We're just throwing out phrases and we're like, it's at least close to that.
Was it A hires A and B
No,
hires B? I don't
I
know.
think you were right about it, but it was just
Can you
funny.
quote that? Like, I don't know. I'm just trying to give you some grammable things.
I know, it was great. I love it. And I will say about the personality test. So this is something that we're working on right now. This is kind of me just telling you, is
Yeah.
that a lot of people spend a crap ton of money to do these
Yeah.
personality assessments, Myers-Briggs, and many other ones.
Yeah.
And when I tell people that we're trying to sell to, they're like, well, we do this. And I'm like, let me hold your hand when I say this. They're giving you the answers they think you want. They're not like, if they
Yeah.
think this job needs somebody that's more energetic and vocal, they are literally gamifying these personality tests and you're spending $75 a candidate or whatever. Sometimes it's more than that.
Yeah.
So what if, we're working on a piece of our technology that takes the answers and then knocks it up against some science-backed reasoning for why this person would or wouldn't be a fit. So it's not a extra test they have to take, but it's
Yeah.
like we're not making the final decision, but based on science and based on these answers up against your
Yeah.
job description, here's like a snapshot of
Yeah.
what would make them great. And so I think, the personality test is
Yeah.
kind of almost going by the way of the past.
Yeah. Well, so what I like about what you're doing is it's better for the candidate too, because as a candidate, you don't want to have to do a video and do an interview and do this
Click,
and do
click,
this
click.
and a work thing and and fill it out. And so if you can just take information that somebody's already giving you and
Make
pull the
it.
data out of that, it's powerful.
That's what we're trying to do, sis. We are trying our darndest every
Listen,
year.
I know.
Okay,
I love
last thing we're gonna do. I've not done this yet, so we're gonna see how this
Okay.
goes. Okay, so we're gonna play just a quick little game to take us out on a high note. And we're going out with our first game with you, Kathryn. And I'm the hiring manager. I'm like, we're gonna role play. This is everybody's first
I love
nightmare.
it. Great.
It's fun because you're an investor and you always make all of us like, give me your pitch. And I'm like,
Oh,
I've got her roped in. She's gonna give
yeah.
me
I'm
a
going to give you a
pitch.
pitch. I'm going to give you a pitch. And
Okay,
you'll
so
see why I wasn't a good fit for sales.
I'm ready. Okay, so I'm the hiring manager, and there's a candidate that
Yeah.
this is their like main qualification that they're gonna hang their hat on. This is gonna be for a sales position, and I want
Mm-hmm.
you to tell me like you're pitching them to me. So it's a former reality TV star. They've never
Mm-hmm.
had a job
Mm-hmm.
or a real job, but they have 1 million Instagram followers, and I want you to tell me why I should hire them.
I would hire this person right away because what they can do, they understand how social media works, which is harder than it seems. They understand how to create something out of nothing, right? They only created value using their personal brand. They don't have a product other than themselves. So they have already sold something to 1 million people with no physical product other than their own self. If you care about personality, they clearly have a great personality because you can't sell yourself without a great personality. And then obviously they have marketing skills because there are lots of famous people who do not have large social followings. So the ability to understand what works, but also there's nobody who has 1 million followers who isn't paying attention to the algorithm, what's going viral, what are the trends, understanding how to do their version of the trends. So I would hire that person to do your marketing tomorrow.
Love it. I would hire them too.
Would you? I would.
Yeah, I would.
Social is hard.
We're out there on the front lines, you and I.
Dude,
So
I love your stuff.
I love your stuff.
You're getting ready for the podcast. I was dying. This is me in my whole life, and it's not always on video, but I feel like it should be on video more.
You
I try to
need to-
do more. I want more outtakes.
You need more outtakes. So let me say bye. Let me close this and then I'm going to tell you one
Okay.
thing off the record too.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much for all of the fun stories and the feedback and the information that you gave us. I'm really, really excited for everybody to hear this. And you're one of my favorite people in the world. And I'm just honored that you would give us this time. So hopefully we'll have you on again.
I'm so excited to be on the talent show, and I'll come back anytime.
We'll do an in-person one day.
Yes.
That'll be fun. Okay. Thank you for listening to Talent Show. Whether you're hiring or looking for a job or just here for a good time, we're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell anybody that this is your go-to hiring podcast. Also, don't forget that when it comes to hiring, personality isn't extra, it's everything. All right, see you next time.